Good to be with you again. As a member of the Knights of Columbus, I received their monthly newsletter magazine, and I was especially impressed this month when I saw the cover with the picture of St. Junipero Serra on it. And it contains a number of articles that are very interesting. I know that in the recent demonstrations and riots that we've seen in our country, for me, one of the most painful was watching the statue of St. Junipero Serra torn down in Los Angeles and in other places, and even to hear that some of the activists burned down one of the churches he established. So painful. If people only knew the real story, they would be celebrating him as a hero, not a villain. I know in the statement of the Archbishop Gomez of Los Angeles, who is this year the president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, and he says the sad truth is that beginning decades ago, activists started, quote, revising history to make St. Junipero the focus of all the abuses committed against California's indigenous peoples. And the Archbishop of San Francisco, Archbishop Cordileone, said to the protesters who tore down his statue in Los Angeles this month, the priest, friar, and St. Junipero Serra represents, quote, hate, bigotry, and colonization, unquote, as one activist put it. Nothing could have made Serra sadder, for the real man was a profound lover of all peoples, and especially of the indigenous peoples he came to serve. We know that St. Junipero Serra was born in Spain in 1713 and became a Franciscan friar, and decided after some years of teaching philosophy to become a missionary in the New World. And so he came to Mexico and spent some 20 years there preaching the gospel, serving the people. In the course of things, he had an accident, and as a result, one of his legs bore an ulcerated condition, very painful for him to walk. It was in 1769 that he moved on to California to begin founding the first 9 of some 21 mission statements. San Diego up to San Francisco. Maybe you've noticed over the years as you hear the names of the cities in California, how many of them bore the names of saints or the angels. And we know that after some 4 years of serving the people, he was very concerned that the Spanish soldiers were taking advantage of the indigenous peoples. He was so upset that he decided to go to the head man, the governor, who was in Mexico City. And that meant that St. Junipero Serra had to travel 2,000 miles, not riding a horse or donkey, not in a carriage. He walked 2,000 miles with that ulcerated leg. It almost killed him. But he had the chance to speak to the governor, make clear to him what the Spanish soldiers were doing in violating the rights of the native peoples. And he even brought to him a written statement of principles which gave the native peoples rights. It was 4 years before our own Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia. And then he had to walk back to California, 2,000 miles. And we know from evidence that the friars created communities for those natives who became Christian, because apparently many of them couldn't go back to their native places. And so the friars created communities where they would be safe, 4 or 5 miles away from the barracks of the Spanish soldiers. That's how they were trying to protect them from being violated. Yes, St. Junipero Serra loved the people that he was dealing with. I know that some people apparently say that, oh, Columbus should never have come to America. I mean, he started all this trouble. If he only stayed in Europe, and all those Irish and Italians and Poles and all those people from other countries stayed there and just left the Native American. Well, I guess people who say that don't know much about history. Every nation I can think of has over the centuries endured movements of peoples. All the nations of Europe are the result of the mingling of all kinds of people who we call barbarians, who came and settled in their lands. And I think most people would say that all the peoples of Europe who have come to the Americas and created a new nation, for the first time, a large, free nation, a democracy, and with all the blessings that America has brought to its peoples. I know some people hate America and all it stands for. They want to destroy it. They want to destroy its history. They tear down its monuments. But most of us, I think, appreciate the greatness of our nation. It isn't perfect, no. We have a long way to go. But we have a great foundation on which to build and to continue to work to realize the ideals of our founding fathers. It's a shame that so many people propagate lies, distortions of truth. They don't care about the truth. If they knew the truth, they would never be tearing down the statues of Junipero Serra. They would recognize not only the holiness of this man, but how much he worked for the native peoples. They suffered a lot from the Spanish conquerors. They suffered again when the Mexicans took over. They took, again, a great hit when the Americans established California as a state. In fact, the first American governor called for a war against the native peoples to wipe them out. That was 70 years after Serra had died. Fortunately, Serra has received his reward from the God he tried to serve so well. Obviously, 5 years ago when the Pope declared him a saint, it was necessary beforehand for miracles to be brought forward, checked out, things that were done in healings of people that couldn't be explained by medicine, science. No, God has attested to the goodness, the holiness of this man. When he died in 1784, we're told how the natives wept. They knew they had just lost their great protector, a man who stood up for them and for their rights as human beings, to be treated with justice and love. Yes, we are very proud of Junipero Serra, a saint who was ahead of his time, a saint who worked for justice, true justice, for the rights of all peoples and an end to their oppression. May Saint Junipero Serra pray for us, our nation, and the people of California. God bless you and your families.